Good morning, everybody, and welcome to SCG Reviews. My name's Will Jones, and today we're going to be taking a look at Dead of Winter. Dead of Winter is a semi-cooperative zombie survival game for 2 to 5 players. Each player controls a handful of survivors in a colony, all trying to outlast both a zombie plague and a deadly cold winter. Collectively, the dozen or so people in the colony will have to forage around town for food, medicine, and other supplies, keep their morale up, deal with crises and random events that occur, and also achieve an objective that's different every game that is designed to lead them out of this zombie purgatory. The objectives will be things like killing a certain number of zombies, gathering a certain type of resource so that you can either flee or cure the disease, things like that. Turn structure can be surprisingly complex because each player around the table isn't controlling one survivor, they're controlling 2 or 3 or 4. Each player has a certain number of dice that they roll each turn that they can spend to perform actions. The more survivors you have in your personal following, the more dice that you get to roll. The actions that you can perform with these dice are pretty much what you would expect. Scavenging for items around town, attacking zombies, building barricades, cleaning up the colony, stuff like that. There does exist an even more basic level of action, like equipping an item or moving a character that doesn't require a die, and you can perform as many of those actions per round as you want. In addition to the actions that the players themselves perform, the game itself has this sort of storytelling AI that will come up with semi-random events to screw with you. One of those mechanics, the crisis deck, is pretty basic and just gives all the players a resource that they need to pool together every turn to prevent something terrible from happening. You know, one of the crisis cards might say, oh, there's a flu sweeping through the colony, so you all have to collectively pool medicine to prevent the flu from killing everybody off. Far more interesting than the crisis deck, though, is the Crossroads deck. On each of your turns, the player to your right will draw a random Crossroads card for you and keep it secret. And each Crossroads card has a trigger effect, something that can happen in the game that will cause its effects to take place. And all the themes, triggers, and effects of these Crossroads cards are very story-driven. There's always a little narrative on them as well to explain what's happening. And it can be as random as, oh, you found some scrappy little children hanging out in the school trying to survive, or you discovered a guitar, or there's a horse wandering through the center of town. And it just gives you some sort of decision point to make as a player or as a group. The storytelling aspect of this game actually goes way beyond just the Crossroads cards. It kind of pervades everything. All the characters are asymmetric with unique sort of story-driven abilities. Every objective has a little narrative in the rulebook that you're supposed to read. All of your personal secret objectives, which are a thing, have a little title to them that sort of gives you a sense of why you're trying to do what you're trying to do. There's always one way to win the game. You want to achieve the main objective and also your secret personal objective that adds one extra criterion on top of that. Alternatively, you can, and probably should, add the potential for one of the players to be a traitor whose objective mandates that everyone else lose. The way that non-traitor players actually lose is surprisingly streamlined. It all funnels into morale. When your morale drops to 0, the game is over and you've lost, I guess through mass suicide? Boy, that's dark. And you lose morale when, say, someone dies, or you run out of food, or you're living in your own filth. Okay, so that's the basics of how it works, but is Dead of Winter a good game? Yes, it is. It's excellent. It is, without a doubt, the best zombie survival game on the market. For those of you who are wondering, the previous best was Zombicide. First of all, and I don't list this as the first positive thing of a game very often, but the production value of Dead of Winter is just incredible. The art and the components are all painstakingly created, and it really feels like this dark, grimy, slushy, wintry zombie hell. All the characters have really unique art and standees that give you a sense of their personality, even though there's barely anything so much as flavor text on the cards. The same thing goes for the zombie standees, and the cards for the buildings around town, and even the supply cards that you're raiding. Everything just looks beautiful. But besides that, in terms of gameplay, the real genius here is how they've struck the balance between giving you a lot of stuff to do, while also making it challenging for you to do enough. There are a lot of points of decision in this game. Every single turn, several times, you have to decide, do I want to move somebody? Where do I want to move them? Do I want to search? Who do I want to attack with and how? How much do I want to risk? And each of those decisions is pretty well balanced in terms of its own positive and negative potential consequences, as well as its relative power to other potential actions. There's definitely a randomness curve in this game at several points, but it's applied in exactly the way that you want randomness to be applied in a game. Most of the time, the random draw off of one of the decks will give you a result that's pretty moderate for good or ill. Sometimes you'll get something that's really awesome and makes you a high five. Yeah, I got a sniper rifle at the police station. And only very, very occasionally will you get something that just makes you throw your hands up in the air and go, oh crap, I can't believe that just happened. A big part of successfully applying random events in games is determining how often a player will obtain a bottom tier result. In a bad game, like say the DC deck building game, you might draw a bottom tier result 70% of draws. It's just horrible. In Dead of Winter, that chance is much more manageable. The random chance for a really poor consequence to an action, like say getting bitten by a zombie and immediately dying as you run between locations, definitely exists, but it's low enough that it feels like the risk is worth it. There's a lot of replayability in Dead of Winter. You've got a lot of objectives, each with different difficulty levels. You've got a ton of characters, all that you can mix and match to sort of vary up the scenarios. And the storytelling element of the game really helps with that too. It can be hard in games like this where one misstep can be the difference between victory and defeat to get into the role-playing aspect of it, but they do kind of gently guide you there to have you make decisions based as your character rather than who you would as a player playing the game. There are a couple of little balance issues. Some of the characters are just blanket better, more powerful than others. There's a slight preference towards going to the police station first to get a bunch of guns to help stabilize your zombie situation, but they're really very minor issues. The one real flaw with Dead of Winter is the difficulty curve. If all the players are genuinely working together, then you've got a solid chance of winning the game, maybe 60 to 70%, enough to feel good about yourselves but still keep it interesting. However, if one of the players is a traitor, then it is almost impossible for the non-traitor players to win the game. Basically, in order to do so, they have to just get a really lucky guess at determining that that player is indeed the traitor and exile them early on. Otherwise, there are so many ways that you can screw things up for them. It does mean that players who are a little less experienced overall with this type of game are going to get a little less enjoyment out of it just because of dealing with the difficulty factor, but it really is a very small issue overall, and Dead of Winter, on the whole, is a tremendous offering from these designers. And that is Dead of Winter. Really hope you enjoyed the review. Thanks for tuning in. Go ahead and click below to like and subscribe to us for more great videos from Stone Circle Games. And until then, have fun around the table.